a drink? You comfortable?
Yep.
What have you got there? What's that? A tea of some sort, is it?
Tea, yeah. Defense tea.
Good man. Normally I have I'm training later, but normally I get given a couple of beers from a company called Tiny Rebel Brewery. But having a few beers last weekend turned into a lot of beers, so I'm trying to have a bit of time off at the moment. But yeah, big up Tiny Rebel. They're good as gold. Let's get stuck into it now, mate. Catflap Chats, episode 116. Visit catflapchats.com to find our back catalogue, our merch, our partners. You've got Tiny Rebel, you've got Dragon Signs, Healthy Hangout in Cardiff, Motorzone in Cumbrae. So big up those guys. Bit of a different podcast today. So I was just saying off pod, normally, we're fortunate to speak to elite level operators in, respective fields of sport, business, music, whatever it might be. But today, I suppose I'm just going to set the scene a little bit. I was at a wedding the other weekend when Storm Eunice was on. The wedding got called off. I was best man, and the groom, his parents own a pub. So we ended up spending 3 days in the pub. I met a young gentleman there called Angus. Angus Baskerville, and he is a magician, and he does that all over the country for various events and so on and so forth. So he come over. I think the groom knew your dad and his mates with your dad, if I remember rightly.
Yeah.
So you came over and you started performing, and I didn't know that you had some of the disorders. And forgive me if I'm using the wrong language, okay? Because it's not often I get to speak to people who have been through things that I haven't. So I didn't notice at first. In fact, I didn't know at all. But you did this magic, and it was absolutely unbelievable. And I know one or two really good magicians down here in Cardiff, but I'd never seen tricks like that you did. So, they were original. You were absolutely amazing. And then afterwards, we got chatting, and you started telling me about your story, and I was fascinated by it, about kind of how you grew up and what you've been through, and some of the challenges you've overcome to where you are now. And I wanted to share that because I can imagine there's people listening to this who may have experienced similar things or know someone who has. And if it helps them understand that person a little bit better and your challenges and how you've overcome them, I feel we might have done a good thing, So, Mr. Angus Baskerville, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. Bit of a long-winded intro, but what's news? How are you? What's going on?
Yeah, no, I'm good. Thanks. I mean, obviously, I'm quite busy at the moment, and I'm keeping busy with all my magic, etc. I'm currently picking up loads of new bookings now, and I'm also working on all my other businesses in terms of raising awareness for autism and taking part in various courses. So I'm keeping busy, and we're about to move house soon as well. So don't know how else to describe it other than keeping very busy.
Yeah, probably a bit of chaos as well.
Yeah.
So for people listening, right? So you grew up and you have, because I suppose this is what I learned from you, and I didn't know much about these subjects. But when people say, someone's on the spectrum, we're all on the spectrum, but it's varying levels of the spectrum. But you deal with, every day with autism, ADHD, and Asperger's, which I knew nothing about. Their terms that I've heard where people go, oh, he's got ADHD, and that child might be a bit restless or a bit fidgety or 100 miles an hour. But I've never really understood what it's like to live with that condition. So you've grown up with those conditions. Firstly, I'd love to chat about kind of the magic at the moment and how that's going. And then I'd like to go back maybe to kind of the beginning and growing up with those, and then how you got into the magic, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
So tell me about magic at the moment. What do you do? The events? Tell everyone kind of what it is you do day to day, essentially.
Yeah, well, I mean, my dream goal is to build a very successful career in magic. And at the moment, I've got my own business where I perform at weddings, corporate events, private parties, functions, promotions. I've done some kids' parties as well throughout since I started. And also I do lots of stage work as well, where I have my own one-man show. Yeah. And I've done things where I've hired out venues where I've done my one-man show, which everyone has bought tickets to. I've taken part in stage competitions at various magic clubs. I'm also a member of the Magic Circle.
Yeah.
And I managed to pass my exam to become a member literally just before lockdown happened back in February 2020.
Yeah.
And obviously since COVID, I did start taking my magic on Zoom, to where I did some Zoom ticketed shows of my own. And also I did some certain events for people on Zoom. But obviously it's great. It's great that now I'm back to performing in person again, getting regular bookings. And since I started doing stage work and doing a lot of stage shows, I have won the stage competition at the Leamington Warwick Magic Society, which I'm currently still a member of, twice.
Class.
And I've also done a stage show at Ventnor Fringe Festival.
Yeah.
I've performed at Autism's Got Talent at the Mermaid Theatre in London 2016 and 2017, where I did an act on stage.
Yeah.
I performed at the Autism's Got Talent Roadshow. I've also performed at the Autism Hero Award ceremony. And I've also performed in Edinburgh Fringe Festival, to name a few. I've done a variety of different events. I've also entertained celebrities at various conferences, including Jasper Carrott, Mo Farah, Frank Bruno, and Melanie Sykes, to name a few. And yeah, I'm continuing to practice with new material here and there to like come up with my own new effects, which I want to publish at some point. And yeah, I've also undergone a few courses to help me get further with my magic business. And since I finished uni, about 3-4 years ago now, I had my own professional website built, and yeah, it's basically going to places here and there. And I'm sure you can understand that since COVID happened, that was when my magic was on hold for a fair bit before I started taking Zoom to the next level.
Yeah.
But no, it's all back up and running now, and I'm obviously continuing to do everything I can to achieve my goal as a successful professional magician. I mean, I am currently a professional, to be honest, but what I mean is obviously build on my career and make it more and more successful over the years, if that makes sense.
Yeah, look, absolutely. I mean, look, we obviously met the other weekend. There was a group of us around the table, and you entertained the pub. And some of the tricks you did were absolutely berserk, because I physically saw with my own eye something happen, and then when you flip the card, it was different. And I don't know, it wasn't even like it was sleight of hand, but it was absolutely incredible. So for anyone listening to this, you know, when this goes out, I will tag in your social medias, but anyone listening to this, absolutely search for Angus Baskerville Magic, and you will not be disappointed. Like, it was genuine. I'm not just saying this because you're here. It was genuinely amazing. All right. I'd love to speak to you about today how someone with autism and ADHD and Asperger's at various levels of that spectrum has gone from being the shy kid that you spoke about to me when you'd finish your magic, we were just sat down having a chat, and how you've gone on that journey from that and what it was like growing up with those disorders to then finding magic, and that's giving you the platform to increase confidence, your social skills, and all that stuff. So if you don't mind, I'd love to go back to the beginning a bit. And what was it like growing up? You know, what's your take on what it is like to have Asperger's, ADHD, and autism?
Well, obviously autism and Asperger's, you could say, is the same thing, but I mean, there's like you said at the very beginning, there's different levels of it. Whereas Asperger syndrome is the shortened form of autism, where, you know, it's basically high functioning. Whereas autism, a lot of the time people refer that to people who are low functioning, and that's what I'm sure you can understand what I'm saying here without sounding rude or anything. It's when they're autistic to the point where they're non-verbal and that sort of thing. But I mean, I won't go into full detail about that now, because that's kind of avoiding what you've asked. You
talk about it however you want to, because the people listening, I want them to learn about it as well.
Yeah, well, from growing up, you see, the problem was I grew up in South Africa, and South Africa are very behind in terms of their knowledge about autism and that sort of thing. But I was showing signs of Asperger syndrome and ADHD from age 3.
Yeah.
And it was very difficult, because obviously I felt very isolated. I had no friends, and I couldn't process things properly. And I mean, I couldn't cope with school and everything like that. I was taking things literally, and obviously I was behaving very different to the rest of the children. As a result of me not being diagnosed, I came across as a very vulnerable person, and as a result I was bullied horrendously throughout my life at school. And also the teachers didn't understand me at all. and as a result, I was constantly getting in trouble by them. They were wondering why I was behaving differently, why I couldn't do things right, and it did result in me being kicked out of 3 schools as well. And my parents obviously constantly had to find the right school for me, and it was very difficult, and due to me not having a diagnosis, and I ended up attending 15 schools throughout my whole life. Now, obviously, I would never be the one to sit here and play the victim over it, because it's because obviously, you know, it's all lessons, and I definitely feel I've learned a lot from it. But there are also many gifts that come with Asperger's syndrome as well, and I feel it's my autism has given me a very creative mindset, which has enabled me to do well with things like my magic. It's also given me a photographic memory, which because one of the things I was able to do throughout my childhood was I was able to remember people's pets' names, remember lines from like poems and things like that, off by heart just by listening to it once, which a lot of people around couldn't do. And I mean, it's always good to focus on the positives rather than negatives, and it's given me a lot of gifts as well. And yeah, like I said, growing up with it can be major challenging, but once you've made it through school, I personally feel that their opportunities are absolutely endless, and you have the ability to achieve so much success. And my parents have said this to me as well, and I agree with them. When I look back at challenges I faced in previous years, I never thought I'd be where I am now, and they didn't think so either. They've actually said this to me. So it just shows I've come to realize that all clouds have a silver lining, because if it hadn't been for all those challenges, you know, I wouldn't be where I am now. But in terms of what it was like growing up, and without repeating myself, it felt very isolating to me, and I felt very different, to the point where I did suffer from things like depression, anxiety, etc. But I was, however, given access to certain therapies, including occupational therapy on horseback, brushing, and rhythmic massage. And that obviously calmed down my sensory system, made me less sensitive, because before I had any of that, I was sensitive to touch. I hated loud noise. I barely ever spoke and everything like that. And that improved that a hell of a lot. And also I became a lot more calmer as well, which helped my ADHD. But what I like best as well from what my parents did is they were told at times to go down the medication route. And I mean, I can't put down medication because I understand there are people out there who have had medication, it's actually worked for them. But I know I met a few people in South Africa who with ADHD or autism who were given medication and it made them worse, or it didn't, or if not made them worse, it had loads of side effects, such as stunting their growth, lack of appetite. And they chose to go down the therapy instead, which worked on the very root of my challenges, which improved me a lot. Because I was quite severely autistic from an early age, but because of the therapies I've had, it enabled me to improve my social skills, talk more, and be a lot calmer, process things better. And obviously, as I got older, I improved, which was good. But it wasn't until I was formally diagnosed where I was able to make friends. People understood me a lot better, and that's when my life improved a lot. But I was only diagnosed at age 15 when we returned to the UK. So my exact explanation of what it feels like to be autistic, or feels like that, is it can feel very different. A lot of the time I felt like I was in this bubble, which basically was shielding me from everyone else and feeling completely different to everyone, which can be isolating and it can be very hard. But when you look on the bright sides, there are so many gifts that come with it. And like I said, it's 10 times more important to focus on the positives rather than the negatives, because nowadays there's a lot more positives to it than negatives, if you understand what I'm saying there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as the story goes on, we'll probably touch on more of the positives. Just while we're in this stage of your life, I'd love to just understand, did you know as a child, I hope this question makes sense. Did you understand why you were potentially acting differently or understanding things at a different rate to the other kids? Or did you not? How did you comprehend it at all, or did you not? And did you struggle with that? And then once you kind of understood that with the bullying, and I can understand what that's like just from bullying in general, that can be lonely, even if you are absolutely, no disorders, nothing wrong with you, you're not overweight, whatever it might be. Bullying still happens sometimes. So
it's not just autistic people that get bullied. Anyone can get bullied at the end of the day.
Exactly. But as you were getting bullied then, did you understand why? And how did you deal with that? Oh, sorry.
In all honesty, no. I mean, why I was behaving different to the other people, why the teachers were always having a go at me, why I was being bullied, I had no clue. And to be honest, and it just led to obviously me playing up even more.
Yeah.
Because it made me feel very different. I was feeling isolated, and as a result, it impacted on my mental health, and it did make me a lot worse, to be honest. And yeah. And my exact answer to your question is no, I had no clue. My parents knew I was different, but I was unable to get diagnosed, which was the main problem.
And so as you were growing up then and the bullying happened and you were changing schools, which is distressing anyway, to move from school to school, how did you deal with those things? So I know you said when we spoke the other day, you found them difficult and it led you to look at certain things negatively in terms of, I don't want to go into it too much if you don't want to, but, you were thinking of taking certain actions and you found life really tough. How did you get over that and learn to live with it and just brush it off and not worry about it?
Well, one thing that helped me a lot was that I was always comfortable talking to my parents about my problems. So when I was being bullied, and when I was constantly being told off, when I was feeling down about it, I mean, I tended to be oblivious to like people not understanding me, but it did impact my mental health in the long run. And that's when obviously I started processing things like suicidal thoughts, and I started self-harming and that, and it did get quite out of hand. But what helped me a lot was that I always had the confidence to speak to my parents about it. And when I was being bullied, and obviously my parents would report it to the school and things like that, and it did help to a point, but it didn't completely stop until I moved schools. And obviously the way my parents tried to deal with it, as well as like talking to the school about it and things like that, taking me to various psychologists and therapies, etc. The other option was to obviously pull me out of that school when they knew it wasn't right for me. And other than that, they also did at one point try prescribing me with antidepressants, but the reason I had to come off those straight away is because it made me very nauseous. I couldn't sleep at all, and they noticed the side effects kicking in very quickly, and they didn't help. So that's when they took me off antidepressants, and they continued to they've continued to take me for various therapies, which helped work on my neurology, and that's what definitely did improve. And it wasn't until I was at this final school in South Africa where where I did make friends ish, and wasn't bullied, etc. And also there were loads of kids there that were different as well, and mostly kids there were dyslexic. And that's they all had their own various differences and that sort of thing, which is why I tended to fit in a bit better there. But it wasn't. But like I said, it wasn't until we moved back to England, which was after that, when I was 15, when things finally started to fall into place since getting my diagnosis. And that, if that answers your question, is how we managed it and that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you remember how? I know you've said it was isolating, but do you remember how you physically, like, so if someone was mean to you, what did you do as a person to shut that out? And do you love music? Did you love films? Did you like going on walks? Was there anything physical that you were able to do to just turn your mind off? Because in today's day, in it, how old are you, just out of interest? 23? 26. There we are. Sorry. In today's world, so like 10 years on, people might get bullied in person and then they go on social media and might get bullied on social media or see really negative things because it's all around us. 10 years ago, that wasn't quite as prevalent and the social media wasn't as big. So what did you do to, if someone's bullied you or being nasty or you're feeling low, what did you do physically to make yourself feel better?
Yes, well, during year 3, when I was at this when I was at this school where I was obviously displaying a lot of ADHD signs, but also I was bullied, etc. At that school, and also not only that was one of the schools where a lot of the teachers didn't understand me. I mean, without playing the victim or anything, it was like that at all schools. But this one particular school was where it was quite dramatic. I always went for occupational therapy on horseback riding after school, and that completely calmed me down. Like I'd always be very distressed when my mum picked me up from school, and after I'd gone for occupational therapy with the horses, I literally had just calmed down completely. So that helped at a young age. But other than that, as soon as I got home, I'd watch TV, I'd go for a walk or something like that, and that tended to obviously help take my mind off things.
Yeah.
But what I've always been very grateful about is that when I was at home, everything was fine.
Yeah.
I've always been fine and want to be at home, but it was school, which obviously was my major challenge growing up.
And so talk to me about, you told me that a bit about finding magic and how that helped transform who you've become essentially, and all the learnings, and you met, your attitude is absolutely fantastic, and there's so many gifts that come with it, and there's so many positives, and there's a positive outlook, and I know that you're looking to help other people in the future as well. What was it about magic and that journey into magic that helped you transform yourself and also your career essentially?
Yeah, well, before I found magic, I was still battling a lot with social skills. I still had no friends. I wasn't. I was a lot better than I was, but I still couldn't socialize properly. Couldn't break into conversation. Was sensitive. Was still a bit sensitive to various things like loud noises, and was obviously struggling making friends, etc. But from finding magic, it obviously helps me in various ways, such as I had to obviously sit down and focus when it came to learning new tricks. Yeah. And because I was working with something that I was passionate about, I was able to sit focusing on it, concentrating on it, and perfecting it for long periods of time, and that improved my concentration focus, which was very important, because then I was able to interpret that onto like focusing and turning my focus for things like revising for exams, etc. So my concentration focus improved because when it first started, I was working with something that I was very interested in. But also, since learning magic, everyone at my school was very interested in it, because I was also a weekly boarder. So they'd be asking me to show them tricks, and I'd be perfecting my tricks on them. Yeah. And obviously, when I was showing people tricks, it involved socializing with them. Yeah. So I got better at making conversation. I got better at socializing as a result. And people obviously found it really interesting, and that enabled me to make friends. So that's kind of how it helps. It gave me a really good logical excuse to obviously socialize with people when I'd show them a trick. Yeah. And that when it came to learning magic, it improved my concentration focus, and I made good friends as a result of being able to socialize much better. Because a lot of the time before that, I'd go up to a group of people who I'd see maybe in the hall or in the playground, whatever. And if they weren't talking about something that I had a particular big interest in, yeah, something that I could talk to England about, I'd literally just go and walk away. Yeah. But when I was able to show them tricks or something like that, obviously they'd invite me into the group straight away, and before I know it, I would perform a load of magic tricks to them, amaze them. I would start chatting to them, would steer the conversation into something else, talking about something that they were interested in. Yeah. And like I said, I made friends out of that. Yeah. I also ended up winning the school talent competition that year, which was really good as well. Yeah. And the other thing was being sensitive to noise, etc. Yeah. Once again, a lot of it was when I was young. The therapies I had when I was young did help that, but it still wasn't 100%. But since learning magic, I was able to walk into my local pub, entertain a load of strangers, and come out later with a pocket full of tips. And a lot of the time when I'd go into the pub was very noisy. Yeah. But I was able to take my mind off it when it came to showing people showing someone magic, because I was focusing on the trick and then allowing them to focus on the trick. And I tended to shut off from all the noise. And as a result, going forward, I was able to walk into a very noisy pub without being sensitive to it. Yeah. So that was another thing. It improved as well, sort of to where I was able to divert my attention away from the noise when I'm being like a loud space, and I'm less sensitive to it now. If I'm saying that correctly, because I'm on sense here. No. Look, it makes sense to me. I understand it, and obviously I've seen you in action as well. Who was it, or do you remember how you found magic, and why magic was the vehicle for you to transform your confidence? Like, who introduced you to magic, and why was it magic? Yeah, well, I have been exposed to I had been exposed to it throughout my life, and was always interested in it. Like I went the odd kids party I used to go to when I was young. There was a magician there.
Yeah.
I was given the odd kids magic set for Christmas as well, and I had a magician for my birthday party. But it wasn't until I was on holiday with my mum, dad, and my sister and their friends at their caravan.
Yeah.
And their two sons showed me this magic trick, which I was quite interested in, and I thought it was really good. And they taught me how to do it, and I went and started showing that to people, and that slightly increased my interest in it. But then when I saw Dynamo on TV, that like really triggered it, and from that I started developing a strong interest in it. And this was just before Christmas. And I did say that one thing I really wanted for Christmas was a course or something I could go to where I could learn to be a pro magician.
Yeah.
My parents bought me a beginner's magic course for 3 days at Davenport's Magic down in London. So I went there for 3 days across 3 weeks, 3 weekends. And this was just before I started sixth form at this new boarding school. And from there I started really learning it, taking it seriously. And after practicing my tricks, perfecting them on the borders at the school for 2 years, that's when I had my first gig. And from there it really took off.
And so as you get to that stage where you've started to do gigs and you're not just doing it for your friends now in school, do you get nervous, and do you deal with nerves differently to maybe, like, I don't know, someone else? Like, everyone deals with nerves in different ways, I suppose.
Yeah.
Are your nerves accentuated and more prevalent because of the disorders that you've grown up with? Or do you find that easy and it's okay?
If I'm honest, I find it easy and okay now, but I mean, I didn't used to. And the first time I ever performed magic on stage at a big sort of area was when I did the school talent competition in year 12. And I remember literally I was so nervous. I mean, I was doing everything I can to try and get out of it. I felt like I was literally about to have a panic attack because I was really, really, really nervous about it. But I went on and did it. And once I got going with it, I was actually all right. But I mean, leading up to it, I was very, very, very nervous, more nervous than I've been for exams.
Yeah.
But once I got going, like I said, once I got going, it was all right. And I ended up coming first place. But between that, once I'd done that, I did develop slightly more confidence, and I did do various stage stuff since.
Yeah.
And from more and more experience of doing it, I became less and less nervous. Yeah. But I have come to realize, though, because obviously I've done loads of stage shows since then, when it comes to performing on stage, you're doing like a big stage show, whether that's singing a song or doing a magic trick or being a comedy or whatever, you could rehearse your acts, what you're doing, literally a million times to the point where you literally know it forwards, backwards, sideways, you name it. Yeah. When you're actually on the stage doing it, it's a completely different feeling, and there's always going to be a bit of nerves there. Yeah, and I do still get a little bit nervous, but I tend to manage it by doing breathing exercises, various calming techniques I remembered to obviously get me to calm down growing up. Yeah. And that always tends to help. But because I've had so much experience doing it, I tend to not get that nervous nowadays. Because when I did Autism's Got Talent at the Mermaid Theatre 2016 for the first time, that was in front of like 400 people, and that was the biggest stage show I'd ever done so far in my magic business since I started. And obviously, and I actually wasn't that nervous about it. And there were people in the audience who were like curious as to why I was doing it with so much confidence, when a lot of the other people who were performing, literally you could tell from a mile off that they were so nervous about it. Yeah. But it's obviously experience, because I've done much bigger shows since then, and nowadays I do get a little bit nervous, but once I've overcome them, once I get going, it's literally nothing. But it was the only time I remember being extra nervous was when I did it for the first time. If that answers your question. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, so, but obviously everyone's different. Some people still get nervous regardless, and it's perfectly understandable. Yeah. But you just got to make sure of 2 things. It's the best advice I can give. One is that you've practiced your act at least 100 times, so you know exactly what you're doing. Yeah. It's not on the spot, because if you're on the spot, you are going to get more nervous, and you also are more likely to mess up. Yeah. but the other one is, make sure you care, make sure, you look after yourself beforehand, maybe do some breathing exercises, meditate or something along those lines, whatever works best. As long as you look after yourself beforehand, then, you should be fine.
Class, I love it. You've performed with Dynamo or for Dynamo? Is that right?
Well, Dynamo was one of the guests at this Legends Ball in London, and I was the magician who mingled with everyone before they went and sat down. I was the magician, but Dynamo came along as the one of the celebrity guests.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. What was that like, meeting him?
No, it was I'd met him before anyway, but I mean it was really good because he's a really nice, humble bloke, and also me and him have a lot in common because he also had a really tough childhood.
Yeah.
He also suffered from bullying at school. He also felt very different to everyone, and I have heard briefly. I mean, I don't know whether this is definite, but I met someone who knew him really well, who's a psychologist at the Legends Ball, because she apparently lives next door to Dynamo. And according to her, he's Asperger. He's got Asperger's as well.
Oh, okay.
So me and him, I personally think me and him have a lot in common, which is why he's been my maiden idol and inspiration.
Yeah, that's brilliant, mate. I love it. How does it affect? And you don't have to answer this, but has it affected you with like relationships with partners, or are you able to? Have you got no interest because you want to focus on your career? Like, again, I've never lived with anything other than me being me essentially. How has it affected you with relationships and?
Yeah, you mean like girlfriend and boyfriend, or?
Yeah, partners, and even I know you said that you're really close to your mum and dad, but even like friends as you've got older. Does it still affect you with friendships because they don't quite understand sometimes?
Oh, in all honesty, no. I mean, as long as your friends understand you.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got friends that understand me, and I do admire them for it. But as long as you take interest in what they've got as well, I've never been affected by any friendships due to my condition, because a lot of my friends are different as well in their own ways. I mean, a lot of them are dyslexic, and some have Asperger's as well. So I do share very similar interests to most of my friends. And I mean, I feel that you're always in with a big head start when you meet someone who you've got similar interests to.
Absolutely.
You've got something to talk about, and I've got that with literally all of my friends.
Yeah.
So friends have never been a problem, and friends have never been a problem.
Yeah.
In terms of relationships, I mean, I had a long-term girlfriend who I was with for 4.5 years.
Yeah.
And she was also on the spectrum. So obviously that helped. But Asperger's and relationships, they can work, and it's never impossible. And I've never experienced like such major problems with relationships. So I'll answer this as best I can. But I have heard about a lot of people who have.
Yeah.
I know of an Aspie who asked a girl out on a date through this online website, and she never turned up, and obviously he had a monumental meltdown over it.
Yeah.
I also know of an Aspie who asked a girl out on a date, and she said no, and he was so incredibly heartbroken about that. Yeah. And a year later, he's still heartbroken about it. Oh. So it can come with its challenges.
Yeah,
but it's all about understanding each other. I mean, an Aspie and a neurotypical in a relationship can work. But I personally think that's less likely to work than an Aspie and an Aspie. But that's only my opinion. I mean, I would never want to offend anyone, but I could be completely wrong.
No, look,
in terms of my own experience, yeah,
exactly, absolutely. Like, you're not saying one is right and one is wrong here. I was just interested to know.
Yeah,
I mean, it hasn't affected you because you've had girlfriends before. So I'm glad that you're able to live with it and bring people into your circle as well.
No, in terms of my experience, an Aspie and an Aspie in a relationship would work best because obviously you have similar interests, similar struggle, not necessarily exactly similar interests, but you struggle with similar things you can do, and you're very similar, meaning you can understand each other a lot better, most likely, and obviously that helps.
Yeah.
Whereas an Aspie and neurotypical, you can be quite different, and there's always the odd risk that one of you might not understand the other as best. But like I said, that's only my opinion, because from my own experience, this is personally my own opinion about it. Someone on the spectrum is less likely to want to be on FaceTime for literally hours on end every night, which is what a lot of people I know, which is what most relationships I know do.
Yeah.
And also, you know, phoning each other for hours on end every day, constantly having to be at each other's beck and call. I mean, that's something that people on the spectrum would likely find quite difficult, but obviously not everyone.
Yeah.
And also another thing as well is a lot of relationships, most of whom I know, post about each other all over social media.
Yeah.
And that's something as well that I can understand a lot of people on the spectrum wouldn't be particularly comfortable with.
Yeah. Oh, that makes
people on the spectrum need their own space as well. And, you know, they can't, and they're not always big fans of socializing for long periods of time, as they can struggle with it.
Yeah.
I'm speaking a lot about myself and people I know on the spectrum here.
Yeah.
But for someone who's a completely different kettle of fish, and neurotypical who's a completely different to all of that, they want to be on FaceTime hours on end every night, which is what a lot of relationships involve. They obviously want someone who's at their beck and call, everything like that. And that's going to be quite hard for an Aspie, but and that's the best way I can describe it. But obviously, I can't say that's the case with everyone. But
no, look, mate, I would find that hard, being on FaceTime.
Yeah, exactly.
My girlfriend rings me. I hate being I'm on the phone in work, so I hate.
I mean, it's not just Aspies. You know, it can be anyone at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. Talk to me a little bit about. You said that you were going to start trying to work with people, using magic as a tool to help people, and I said to you that would be amazing in primary schools and junior schools, and you said, well, actually that's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
Tell me a little more about that and your plan for the future and what you'd love to do moving forward.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's all plans at the moment, and I'm doing everything I can on it, but I mean, nothing's launched yet.
Yeah.
But I'm working on it. The plan is basically to because I understand a lot of schools have children on the spectrum who, you know, are feeling isolated. You know, they're struggling to process things. They're walking around at break time with no friends, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But for me to go in and run a magic club where they can come learn magic, that can help them break into conversation. It can help improve their issues, which they may have, similar to what I have. Because, you know, from my own knowledge and experience from it, it's given me an idea on how you can help someone. And the earlier you help them, the quicker they can improve, rather than you know, going all through school finding it really challenging.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of them just struggle. I'm finding it a bit hard to explain this, but
it's okay.
You know, the sooner you can help them, the better, rather than letting them struggle all through school until eventually only when they reach the end of school then they find the solution. You know, you want to help them earlier on so they can be a lot happier from the beginning. And for me to go in and teach them magic, they've got something that they can wow their friends and family with. Yeah. And obviously at the same time, it will improve their confidence, their social skills, and that can help them make friends. And before you know it, you know, they could come from lonely to feeling included, which is the best I can describe it, because it helps me. So I feel I can use that to help other people as well. So you know, they can have the freedom that they deserve.
I absolutely love that. And the fact that you, as a young man, and I don't say that disrespectfully, I'm 36, so I'm old compared to you, but as a young man, you're willing to give back to the community and help something that's affected you personally.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. And I can see how children who may feel lonely, and they may not even be on a spectrum or diagnosed yet, they may just be a bit of a loner for whatever reason, or they may struggle with relationships, they may not like football or the mainstream things that kids like growing up.
I mean, the reality is, when you find your passion and embrace it, you know, opportunities can be absolutely endless, and you know, it's amazing how quickly you can improve. And that's what I've come to realize. That's what I've come to realize myself. Yeah. But I obviously found, without playing the victim, I found this much later on in my life. Yeah. And as a result, you know, school, young childhood was a challenge for me all the way through. And I want to basically help people much earlier on so they don't suffer from a lot of the things I suffered from.
Yeah.
And once again, not being diagnosed and lack of understanding, the problems can be absolutely horrendous with that. So I obviously want to try and avoid that happening to as many people as possible.
Yeah.
Which is basically what I'm trying to do with going into schools and running magic clubs. And at the same time, if a lot of people haven't found anything they're interested in, they don't know what their passion is, anything like that. And before you know, a lot of them actually might decide that magic's their passion. I mean, it doesn't necessarily, it's obviously not everyone's going to say that. I'm not expecting everyone to decide that magic's their passion after that, not at all.
Yeah.
But the sooner they find their passion and embrace it, there's opportunities for jobs, and their self-worth and self-esteem will improve a lot as well.
Yeah.
And when you can turn it into a business and actually work with it, your concentration, focus, everything is going to improve a lot more because you're working with something that really, really interests you. Yeah. And that's basically the sort of thing that I want to try, and that's my goal with obviously helping children in school who are on the spectrum or just who are feeling isolated, etc.
I think it's amazing, and I think that for children to be able to learn about, to be able to build on their confidence and self-esteem, whether they are diagnosed or not, whether they have a condition or not, I think is amazing. And the fact that even if I don't have say I'm a young child, I don't have a condition, but I can understand more about children that do, and I can understand how they work, what they like, what they don't like, how to communicate with them, how to be friendly with them, probably just be a bit nicer for people with and without the condition at a younger age. I would imagine that it would be harder to do in secondary schools because they're teenagers, they might not care, they probably won't understand what you've been through. Whereas a youngster, magic absolutely can be the vehicle to help with a load of societal issues like loneliness, teamwork, communication, self-confidence, all those things. So I absolutely love what you're doing, mate. I think it's going to be
appreciate that. Thank you.
I think it'll be class. What's the future for you then in terms of magic as well, and what plans have you got and where do you want to take it?
Well, my goal is obviously to take my one-man show around the world, go on tour. I also like the idea of performing my magic show on cruise ships. That's something
amazing.
Yeah, overall just build a really successful career in magic, whether that's performing on TV or around the world on tour is definitely something that I'd really love to do.
Yeah.
And other than that, I'd also really love to raise as much awareness about autism as possible, which is another thing I'd really love to do. So the best I can describe it is that my future is obviously traveling around the world on tour with my magic and raising awareness about autism.
I love it. I love it. You said off pod at the beginning that you had a trick that you could do on Zoom. So
yeah.
You let's have a look, because I can clip this up and show the people as well.
Okay, thank you. Now, I found magic for the very first time at a young age when I had a dream of an individual playing card.
Yeah.
And that playing card found me the next day. It was the Queen of Hearts. I had a dream of the Queen of Hearts one night. And when I went downstairs for breakfast in the morning, the first thing I saw when I walked into the room was my little sister watching Alice in Wonderland on TV. And there was the Queen of Hearts.
Yeah.
The night after that, I had another dream of a card. Yet this time I dreamt of the 7 of clubs.
Yeah.
And when I was at school the next day, I asked my teacher to name a playing card, and she named the 7 of clubs. This went on for about a week of me dreaming of playing cards every night, and it always finding me or me finding it the next day, until I realized that I had found the magic within me and decided to take it to the next level. But believe it or not, still to this day, I have dreams of playing cards every night, including last night. And knowing I was performing to you, whether that's in person or over the computer, the card I dreamt about hasn't found me yet. And knowing I was performing to you, I placed it inside this pack reversed. So I want you to help me by thinking hard about what you think my card that I dreamt of could be.
Yeah.
As soon as you've got the card in mind, could you name it out loud? And the card that you think I dreamt about last night, please.
And it could be any card.
Literally any card at all.
Okay, I'll say the 10 of diamonds.
10 of diamonds. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, after I've done this to you, though, you or anyone who's watching might think, what would have happened if you'd chosen a different card? So I'm going to give you one last chance if you want to stick with the 10 of diamonds, or you can change your mind.
I will. I'll stick with the 10 of diamonds.
Stick with the 10 of diamonds. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's fine. But inside this pack of cards, okay, I've got one card reversed.
Yeah.
I can guarantee you it's the 10 of diamonds. I can prove it, all right? Because as I spread through, if you see one card facing the opposite way around, because remember I said at the very beginning, I placed one card reversed.
Yeah, I can see it there.
You see it right here?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's the only one reversed inside this pack.
Yeah.
Closer.
Yeah.
Now you could have named any card you liked, and I gave you a chance to change your mind.
Yeah.
But thanks to your strong imagination, I have turned my dream into reality yet again tonight. May you be able to one day too, because it is the 10 of diamonds.
That's amazing. And for anyone listening, like I swear on my daughter's life, we have not set that up. Like I could have picked any number then. That is absolutely mental.
Thank you very much.
You are incredible. Angus, mate, you are a fantastic young man. I loved meeting you last weekend. Hopefully when the wedding is rearranged, you'll still get to come up and show us and wow us with your magic.
Yes, most definitely.
I think you are going to do great things. Yeah, hopefully. I think you're going to do great things for not only yourself, but for other people. And that is amazing, mate. So
appreciate that. Thanks so much.
No, thank you for coming on. I'll tag you in this next week, or it'll be Monday when it's out, and we'll tag you. And if people want to find you, they can find you. I think your Instagram is Angus B Magician, Angus Baskerville Magic on Google or on Facebook, Angus Baskerville on LinkedIn. And I think your Twitter was Angus Baskerville VIL1. So yes, if anyone wants to find you, they can look that up. We'll obviously tag you in on all the different platforms. But mate, thank you so much for coming on and telling your story. I wish
thank you too.
No, not a problem. I wish you nothing but the best. And I look forward to seeing what the future holds for you. Okay, mate?
Appreciate that. Thanks so much, mate.
No worries.
See you very soon.
Right, you take care.
Cheers. Take care. All the best. I'll see you soon.
Take care, mate. Ciao, buddy.
Thanks. Bye.